topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Join your host, who is a multiple #1 international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer. She's the founder of Genuinely-You and has 30 years experience of helping people step into their genuine, authentic power. And now, here is Gina Gardner, your host of Leadership for Life.
Hello there, and welcome to today's show. As always, I've got a great guest, and those of you who've been following the show since its inception will recognize Brenda Jacobson when I bring her in after the first section. You know, the world's going through massive change at the moment. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about business or personal life, technology, or all of the trouble and strife that there is around the world. And we need different solutions. The thinking that got us here isn't going to be the thinking that gets us out of there. And one of the things that makes the difference, what actually acts as the rocket fuel for change, are those who influence us and who influence society. And I think it's there where we need the biggest change. You know, there are many people who are now influencers in terms of what we buy on social media. People who are making huge fortunes out of their popularity. But for me, we need influencers who are coming from a place of real heart. And that's not to say anything against those people at all. But I believe we need influencers who can see through the complex things that are going on, which in many ways look like a bowl of spaghetti that's covered in tomato sauce. Influencers who have experience, but who also are tuned into their own inner wisdom and to the conscious wisdom, who can see beyond what has been, who can look for creative solutions, who want to make a positive difference in the world and are ready to make a living legacy. And we've talked about living legacies. You know, every word you speak, every action you take or not leaves a living legacy. And so we're going to be talking about an amazing event that's going on next week, but also talking about how each of us has the opportunity to be influenced and to decide what's authentic, what's heart-driven, what is actually in the best interest of ourselves and the world, and also what's not. You know, there's a hell of a lot of Emperor's New Clothes out there. Do you know the story? The Emperor was a real so-and-so. He had an ego the size of Pluto, and he was really vicious with his staff if they challenged him or said no, or that looks ridiculous. And so I reckon they wanted to get their own back. The court official decided that he would ask the tailor to pretend that he had made some wonderful clothes. And they took him in, and there was a great pantomime while they introduced him to these amazing clothes. But the reality is that he was walking around in his underwear because they had fed his ego to such an extent that he believed that he looked like a peacock, that he had the most amazing designer clothes of the day. Everybody in the court was laughing behind their hands. And the reality is that he believed it because he believed in his own PR, that he believed he was invincible, he believed that he was amazing. And the reality was that he was shallow, that he was vindictive, that he was an empty vessel. And there are many people who are offering what they see as, or what they say as the solution, when the reality is that they're lining their own pockets, that they're doing what's best for them and not for the people that they purport to help. One of the things that I think is so important as we move forward is having leaders who lead with true authenticity. They leave their ego at home under the pillow with their pajamas or their nightie. And what they want to do is to help people, to truly help people be the best they can be. And so the focus is not on, aren't I a clever boy or aren't I a clever girl, but actually, what can I do to support you to become the very best version of you? Those for me are the authentic, genuine leaders. They're enlightened leaders. And those who've watched the show before know that that's what I'm about. Ultimately, they've learnt to lead themselves. They come from a place of true wisdom, authenticity. They don't try to be something that they're not. They recognize that life is about learning and that they too want to learn. And when you come across one of those leaders, they really open you up and make you feel you can do anything too. That, I think, is something that is very precious, and we need it. So think about your daily life and think about the sorts of challenges that you're having. And let's face it, there are a lot of challenges around. In the UK, for example, our energy bills have gone through the roof. Inflation is running at something like 7% and thought to be going to get higher. There are all sorts of issues facing us in the UK, and wherever you are in the world, you will have your version of those. And then, of course, you've got the personal issues, your relationships, your health, your wealth, being short of money, not being able to afford all of these rises, cost of living rises, can be a real worry. And so having people who can influence our thinking, get us out of that habitual, just merry-go-round of thinking, well, I can't do that and there's not enough, to think in a very different way, because we live in an abundant world. There is enough to go around. There is enough for us all, but you get more of what you focus on. So if you focus on the difficulty and you focus on the lack, that seems to expand. Whereas if you focus on the solution and see yourself as part of the solution, things expand and you can find yourself in a very different situation really quickly. Ultimately, I've said this so many times, you're the common denominator. You take yourself into every situation. So how are you showing up? Are you showing up authentically? Are you influencing the people around you for the right reasons? Research shows that when things go wrong, we tell on average 37 people. Now, somebody's got part of my share. The other thing is that as we tell people, we expand upon the story. It gets embellished. And so it's a bit like a fishing story, and you might have caught a little sprat like that, but by the time you've told people about how terrible it was and how long you waited, that's got bigger and bigger and bigger. On the other hand, when things go really well, we tell only 5 people on average. Now, you may not think that that's an influencing issue, but the reality is that you influence people without your realizing it every moment of every day. You influence people because you'll say that something is great or not. You'll recommend something or you'll say it's terrible. You will influence people by the way in which you behave. I'm reminded of the children at school, and those of you, again, who've been watching the show know that I was a principal or head teacher for over 20 years. And it's really interesting if you just think about language. The language that children use in the playground or when they're with their friends is very often, and should be in some cases, very, very different to the language that they use with their parents or with the teacher. And if you think about you as an adult, you'll talk in one way to your friends, your close friends, and you'll talk in a very different way when you're talking to the bank manager or to an insurance broker or to your boss. And that language, the way in which we use it is so powerful because always the language that we are using, the very energy that we give out, is influencing people, whether we recognize it or not. And we, in turn, are being influenced by others. That's why we have advertising. If we weren't able to be influenced, then why would companies spend billions of pounds worldwide on creating adverts? Our job, I believe, is to be able to be discerning, to actually think about, is this a source I trust? Are they selling this to me because it truly is going to be good for me? Or are they selling this to me because they simply want to make money? And it's my belief that those businesses that really have heart and purpose and want to make a positive difference to their clients and their customers, those are the companies that you want to deal with. Those who put your needs way up at the top of the list, who give good customer service, who really have a product that is what it says, does what it says, and actually can make a positive difference to you, the planet, and so on. So we're going to go for a short break now. And when we come back, we're going to be talking to Brenda Jacobson, an amazing lady who has an organization called Awakening Consciously. And it's so appropriate to be talking about awakening consciously at this point in our human history. So please don't go away. See you in a minute.
You have been listening to Gina Gardner on Leadership for Life. We'll be back after this quick break. Want to get the best out of life personally and professionally? Are you ready to step into a life which excites and fulfills you? Well, the right place for you is Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. We will share with you stories from inspiring people, a wide range of guest experts, and lots of practical strategies to help you get the very best out of your personal and professional life. Leadership for Life is a radio and TV show focused on helping you live a happier, more successful, and fulfilling life. Join international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer, Gina Gardner, live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Become the leader of your own life. Gina Gardner's #1 international best-selling book, Thriving Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success, and Fulfillment, provides you with the foundational principles on which to become the best leader of your own life. It's available as an ebook, paperback, hardback, and as an audio from genuinely-you.com, or also from Amazon. Every one of the principles have been proven to work for the countless people who have used them, including the author. Now, let's put them to work for you. If you're ready to discover your true leadership life design, accelerate your journey with an invitation to join Gina for a Leadership for Life VIP Day. Choose your journey of self-discovery where Gina will help you navigate your way to happiness, success, and fulfillment. To find out more, email Gina at genuinely-you.com. Welcome back to Leadership for Life. Here is your host, Gina Gardner.
Hello there. I'm so pleased to be able to welcome my great friend, Brenda Jacobson. She's an amazing lady. She's the founder of Awakening Consciously, and her 25 years as a finance executive and business strategist came to an abrupt halt when she fell 3,000 feet down a mountain while skiing. The 5 years of recovery brought her life her passion for helping people optimize every level of their beings. In her search for tools and techniques, she delved deep into the energy body and chakra systems. She says this became the user manual she was always seeking for her life. Today, she helps people awaken to and access the power of this ancient tool for the extreme challenges we're facing in the 21st century. So I'd like to welcome Brenda Jacobson.
Hello.
Hi there, and thanks for joining me on the show.
Oh, thanks for the invite. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you. Now, we've got a lot to talk about, but I just would like you to just briefly tell people about your own awakening and how that came about.
Well, I gradually started to awaken over years and had some resistance to it. Had some resistance to I was a finance executive, and talking about the energy body and meditation just wasn't acceptable 20 years ago. So what really kicked me into gear was out skiing one day, caught an edge and fell 3,000 feet down a mountain. Spent 5 years recovering and just could not go back to that old format of life. It had, I had wakened up slowly, but I woke up and joined the real world.
Okay. Now, your work, which is around the energy body and chakras, for people who are listening to this who may not be familiar with that, can you give us a brief overview about what you mean by awakening consciously?
I think that the world is changing for people drastically and faster every day. I mean, the whole world got turned on its head over the last 2 years. And the world is changing, whether you admit it or not. It's evolving, and you are evolving along with it. It's when you can open your eyes and realize that there's something grander out there and consciously take control of your life. So that's what I mean by awakening consciously is instead of letting the world pull you along with it, take charge and lead the way for yourself.
Don't you think language is interesting? Because I talk about becoming the leader of your own life, and you're talking about awakening consciously, and you could interchange them, couldn't you?
You could absolutely. I think in this time, everybody needs to be an influencer.
Yes.
If you influence one person, you're making a huge difference in the world.
It's interesting because I think we consciously or unconsciously influence people, and we can influence people for good or for negative reasons. And I think, for me, part of the consciously is about recognizing that you are influencing people, and how are you doing it, and what's the impact of that influence. Being really awake about it, which is why I love the name of your business, which is Awakening Consciously.
Yeah, awakened aware. And I love what you had said in the introduction about people telling their stories of woe 37 times and not nearly as many times on the positive side. And that is, you pointed that out, that is influencing. And people do it unconsciously. I say it's very much like the tail wagging the dog. They don't mean to be doing harm. They don't realize that they're doing harm, but they are in fact causing harm to themselves and the environment around them. When they can open their eyes and become conscious of, just the vibration of things, the vibration of energy, of emotions, of what's going on in their bodies, if they can become aware of that and then take charge of it, their life opens up in ways that they can't even imagine.
And I think whether people see themselves as spiritual beings, I believe we're all spiritual beings. But I think even if you think that what we're talking about is pink and fluffy and wiki woo, there's now such a body of research that shows that people who spend their life focusing on the negative, people who complain all the time, it has a physical effect on their immune system, on the body's capacity to fight off disease, cancer, and so on. You get stressed, heart disease, the list goes on and on. So even if you don't want to take on the spiritual side of things, on a very practical nature, it makes sense, doesn't it, that you
absolutely
take charge of how you react to things.
You're so bang on with that, because we've seen such an escalation of stress, anxiety, overwhelm as the world is changing. Before, over the last 10 years, I've been watching those stats climbing. And the one solution is to take a bunch of drugs for it. But drugs have
which many people are doing.
Which they are, because that was really the only solution that was available to them, or that they were conscious of being available to them. And then they start suffering the side effects of the drugs. I got off all medications in the early 90s
Yes.
and thrilled that I did that, because the strategies like just breathing, just learning to breathe, breathing properly can heal so many things. Tapping into the subconscious, it's the first and only healer out there. You can heal all kinds of ailments, every ailment in your body, just through the subconscious, what the subconscious does. There's all kinds of studies around this. But when you said, like, you look at the studies that have come out around stress and what stress, the impact that stress has on the physical body, it's the same thing with fear. It's the
Yes.
same thing with anger. It's the same thing with all of those, what we call contracting emotions, the emotions that
Yes.
make your world smaller. Is so much different than if you're in optimism or joy or peace. The world just expands for you.
I think it's probably important to explain that although we're talking about awakening consciously and influence, you are the CEO of UEQ, which is all about emotional intelligence. And emotional
Absolutely.
intelligence is a big part of what we're talking about, but it's not the whole story, is it?
It's not, but it is a really big part. When you look at the
Yeah.
energy body and the chakra systems, the energy body is made up of your physical body, which everybody's familiar with,
Yeah.
your mental body, which we all have an idea what goes on in the mental side of us, the emotional body, which most of us try to deny even exists, and the spiritual body around that.
Yes.
So, and they all work together. You can't take one without the other. But when we look at the chakra system, which is where I really cut my teeth in this energy
Yes.
field, is every one of those chakras is impacted, along with the whole energy body, by every emotion that you feel. So becoming intelligent about your emotions and the emotions of other people around you, and how you are allowing those to impact you, how you step into your power and take charge of your life and find your authenticity, find your real purpose. Just all of those things come to us through the energy body and the chakra system. And it's just, like I say, it's a tool that I came across in the 90s. I started working with it. I used it I was a corporate executive at the time, and I used it in my team building, brought it into my teams in either a visible way or an invisible way, depending on the group. But it is just so relevant to every level of life, whether you're worried about finances, your health, your relationships, your relationship with yourself, your purpose, your job, like any of those things. The energy body has a solution to that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's all about balance.
Yeah.
And when something is out of whack, whether that's physically, you just feel a bit umpty and things don't feel right, or your mood is low, or you're just feeling irritable and you're not quite sure why, or you're emotionally burying your emotions, and as you said, so many people ignore them. And burying your emotions is such hard work. It's so energy expensive, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It is exhausting for people. I mean, just think about times when if you've lost a loved one and the grief that you experience that, and how that drains the life out of you.
Yeah.
That's a really tangible way, but we get that on micro levels. That's a macro level. We get that on micro levels as well, with little hits. Somebody insults us and we get angry with them. That drains our energy.
Yeah.
All of those things are very relevant.
I think it's quite interesting, how often we talk about the people we spend time with and how they're energy vampires or their energy batteries.
Yeah.
And for those of you not familiar with that term, you spend time in the. I've got an old friend staying with me. Actually, a long-standing friend. I've known her for 35 years. I've laughed more in the last 3 days while she's been staying with me. In fact, her, Maureen Reed Swan.
Oh, yeah.
And we've laughed more in the last 3 days than I have done in a long time. And it just energizes you.
Oh, it does.
But when you're with somebody who is moaning all the time, you just feel the weight, don't you?
You do. You do, because we take it, whether we like to or not. If and this is where emotional intelligence comes in. If we're not intelligent about what's going on and we don't protect ourselves and remove ourselves from those situations, they will suck the life out of us.
Yes.
And they will drain us of our energy to a point where people can get if they're living in an environment like that, they can physically take on disease or get very, very sick or even die from when it's like somebody draining all of the oxygen from your body. You can't live without it. You can't live with life force energy either. And if somebody is draining that from you, you suffer tremendous impact from that. There are ways to protect yourself or to just be aware of it and remove yourself from a situation like that. But
I
you've
think
got to be
that's so
intelligent
important.
about it.
Yeah. Now, we could go along that route, but I want to talk about, you've got a very special event coming up next week, haven't you?
Yes,
and
on
I
the
think
25th, 26th.
So would you like to explain people what the event is? I'm really excited because I'm going to be speaking at the event. So explain what's going on.
You know, where it came from was me seeing the world change so dramatically and people's lives changing and people wanting their lives to change, not wanting to go back to the 15-hour days and those sorts of things. And so it kind of gave birth to this gig economy where people stepped out and they started taking on different roles within their lives, many of which became solopreneurs or entrepreneurs or started small businesses. And even if they were in small businesses before, the whole environment has changed. It didn't matter when I started my businesses, a digital presence really didn't come into the equation at all. Now it's vital. It is vital that you understand how to create that digital presence. We're looking at NFTs, at cryptocurrency. How do you bring NFTs into your company to really create another revenue stream for yourself, a passive revenue stream for yourself? How do you use some of these new tools? Writing your story and how your story can actually become a magnet for your ideal clients. None of these things were really taught to entrepreneurs going. Were taught about accounting and managing people, and this emotional intelligence was never taught to anybody. Kind of apparent when you look at social media today. But none of these skills were taught. So what we've done in this conference is pulled together. We've got 16 experts talking, a few more that really wanted to talk and there wasn't space for them. So every one of those 30-minute interviews will be recorded, and along with the ticket price will be available for people to review, the ones that they missed, the ones that they wanted to do more of. It will be available for them up on a platform. So
tell us where, I'm going to say, where can people find out about it and get a ticket?
The website for the landing page for it is ignitingbrilliantinfluencers.com. And it tells you a bit about the conference. It's just one page. It lists the speakers there, what you can get, and the button to register is all over the page. What I do want to say to people is that it's not a summit. We call it a conference for a reason, because the other thing that entrepreneurs really need is that ability to network, to build their communities, to find those like-minded people to collaborate with. And so what we're doing is, and plus on summits, when I go to them and there's just speaker after speaker after speaker, I only hear like in 30-minute increments, and then the first 30 minutes disappears, and then I get into overwhelm and I can only attend maybe 2 of the speakers in the conference. So what we're doing with this one is we're interviewing the speakers for 30 minutes. And then because of the platform that we're using, we can send people out to a conference room then it's digital, so online, where they can see the tables and they can be with the people that they want to connect with, the people that they want to connect with. They can talk about what they heard from the speaker, what was important to them. They can hear from other people at their table what was important to them. And that does 2 things. It allows people to process the information that they took on from the speaker, but it also allows them to hear something that they may not have heard from one of the other speakers. And so they really deepen their knowledge of what the subject that speaker was speaking about. Plus, they have a chance to connect with all kinds of entrepreneurs and see who's working in the same field, who to collaborate with. So it should be a good event.
a great opportunity, isn't it? A nice balance
Yeah.
between having an input. And I think so often, particularly for entrepreneurs and business people, they're always giving out to others. And to
Yeah.
have somebody topping your battery up,
Yeah.
challenging your thinking, taking your thinking to the next step, I think that's really valuable. But then being able to break out, talk to other people. I had a look at the technology that you're going to use, which looks
Yeah.
very straightforward and simple. But instead of being stuck with people, if you within a group, then you think actually they're not the right people for me, you can move tables. You're in control, and I like the fact that people who
Absolutely.
are attending have that level of control, which so often doesn't happen
Yeah,
online.
they control their own experience, and it's just great. And the title Igniting Brilliant Influencers is, we've got some brilliant influencers, yourself included, that are speaking at it, but it really is to ignite that brilliance within the attendees, because everybody has that brilliant influencer inside them. And so we really want to ignite that so that they see all kinds of new opportunities and possibilities to flourish personally and professionally within this new world.
I think anybody who's listening to this, if you are someone who would like to be part of the new world and you want to look for solutions and have a profitable business, because for me, profitability is so important. We all need to pay our bills and we want things to be successful. But I see profits from a holistic point of view, and that ultimately those businesses who focus just on the money may succeed in the short term, but it's not going to be long lived. But if you focus on developing and growing your people so that they too are part of the vision and the mission, that they've got ownership, then profits come in spades, but they're also sustainable and you can build on them over time.
And not only that, but they feel right. Like,
Yes.
I know I have worked with entrepreneurs my entire career as a CFO, as a chief financial officer.
Yeah.
I worked in that realm, and many of them were a bunch of not happy people.
I think
And they
that's
could be
probably an
making a lot of money.
understatement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the ones that made more money seemed the least happy. But when you can make the right money, make money in the right way, and that's true to your soul, that true to your authenticity, there it ignites that brilliance, it ignites that magic within you.
Yeah.
And not only are you making more and more money because now your vibration is up at the level where you've become a magnet for that flow of finances, but you're living in joy and in peace. You're not stressed and worn out and burnt out and burning through your relationships at home, and all of those things that come along with the old format of doing business, of being an entrepreneur. None of that is acceptable anymore. It isn't necessary, and it's not acceptable.
I think, I work with many people who have recognized that doing things a new way, taking the best of the old,
Yeah.
but actually recognizing that you don't have to be in the sort of competition, whereas in order for me to win, you have to lose.
Yeah.
That we can be in the same industry, but
Yeah.
ultimately people will choose the person who resonates with them. And that if I'm doing a great job, I don't have to worry about somebody else. All I need to do is to focus on in making the best opportunity to support and help and grow and influence others.
Absolutely. And I know I've shared this with you before, but in my journey of helping entrepreneurs, I came across the original definition of compete.
Okay.
And when you break it down into its Latin terms, this is what I was told. Its Latin terms, it translates into thrive together. And what
Isn't
you
that
said,
interesting how
yes.
differently it's used?
And at the time, I'm working in the kill or be killed competitive nature of
Yeah.
business. And nobody was happy. Nobody was getting along. When you can bring the whole idea of thriving together is that you create an environment that is so fertile that there is more business than everybody can take on. There is no shortage of business. Nobody
No.
has to go looking for it because it's just appearing there. And I'm experiencing that in both of my businesses, in UEQ and Awakening Consciously now. Without even looking for it, business is coming to me now.
That's
So
just wonderful, isn't it?
yeah, and it's the right business. It's stuff that just warms my heart. It just it expands my world because of the nature of the opportunities that are coming to me. They're
Yeah,
not heavy, they're light. They're light, they're fun, they're easy, and they're abundant.
brilliant. Now, we've just got a few minutes before we have to go to a break. The importance of your root chakra financially
Yeah.
is something that you speak a lot about. And
Yeah.
I wondered whether, we can just spend a very few minutes introducing to our viewers and listeners the importance of the root chakra and why that's important and what people can do to ensure that their chakra is supporting their financial abundance.
Absolutely. The root chakra is the grounding part of the chakra system. It sits right at the tailbone and draws that electromagnetic or the magnetic energy up from the earth. And it is where we create our safety and security and our physical, all of our physical life, which includes the finances. What happens when you really heal that root chakra and you get it balanced and operating the way it should be is it creates a really powerful container for everything that you want in your life, whether that is relationships, whether it's health, wellness, whatever it is, including your business ventures, your finances, everything. If you can't hold on to something if you don't have a container to put it in. So we see so many people out there that win a lottery or get an inheritance, and the studies show, the proof is in the numbers show that within a year or two they're bankrupt again. They were able to attract that, but they had no container to hold it in their life.
Yeah.
And so it's the other thing with the root chakra. When you see somebody that's really grounded, those are the people that we say have the world by the tail. Things come so easy to them.
Yeah.
They've got charisma. That's people with a really healthy, strong root chakra. Is when they're grounded in that, they're a magnet. People come to them, opportunities come to them. And if they've created that really powerful container to hold all of those things, they have the world by the tail. They become one of those people.
So where can they find you and help in order to ensure that, for example, you do much more than this, but that they can actually ensure that their root chakra is something that's going to support ongoing abundance?
A couple of ways. I've got a publication up on Amazon. I've got several of them on the chakra system, but one called Getting to the Root of Your Financial Greatness, which really is an intentional journal. So it doesn't give you the answers. It's not an information dump. There's a bit of information on it, but it really asks probing questions that you look inside and find your own answers to that. It gives you some healing strategies. I've got another book up there called Awakening Consciously that reviews, it's more text heavy. It reviews the whole chakra system. And then all of these things are available on Awakening Consciously. There's meditations there. But the best way to get hold of me, I think, is through Awakening Consciously. Hit the contact form. It sends me an email, and we can go from there.
And finally, remind people where they can find the conference.
The conference, the landing page is ignitingbrilliantinfluencers.com. And it's being held on May 25th and 26th. And you can see the whole list of speakers there. And just know that the ones that you can't make because of scheduling or for whatever reason, you have access to those indefinitely after the conference.
Now, thank you for that. Just before you go, as you know, we're so pleased to be members of B1G1.
Yes.
And we invite, if you're not familiar with this, we invite every guest to choose one of the projects for Buy One, Give One, and we donate on their behalf. And Brenda has chosen education. Why did you choose education?
I think it's the foundation of everything. And I don't think that it's really available. Education for this new world is not the education for the old world. And I
Yes.
think we're seeing that in the youth that are coming up through the education programs. So revamping that entire system is critical to
Well,
every level of life.
we will be donating on your behalf.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. And thank you very much for yet again a super interview.
They're always great, aren't they? I always have joy being with you.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. And I'm really looking forward to speaking at the conference. Now,
Yeah.
we're going to have a short break. Please don't go away. See you again in a couple of minutes. And Brenda, once again, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
You have been listening to Gina Gardner on Leadership for Life. We'll be back after this quick break. Want to get the best out of life personally and professionally? Are you ready to step into a life which excites and fulfills you? Well, the right place for you is Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. We will share with you stories from inspiring people, a wide range of guest experts, and lots of practical strategies to help you get the very best out of your personal and professional life. Leadership for Life is a radio and TV show focused on helping you live a happier, more successful, and fulfilling life. Join international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer, Gina Gardner, live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Become the leader of your own life. Gina Gardner's #1 international best-selling book, Thriving Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success, and Fulfillment, provides you with the foundational principles on which to become the best leader of your own life. It's available as an ebook, paperback, hardback, and as an audio from genuinely-u.com, or also from Amazon. Every one of the principles have been proven to work for the countless people who have used them, including the author. Now, let's put them to work for you. If you're ready to discover your true leadership life design, accelerate your journey with an invitation to join Gina for a Leadership for Life VIP Day. Choose your journey of self-discovery where Gina will help you navigate your way to happiness, success, and fulfillment. To find out more, email Gina at genuinely-u.com. Welcome back to Leadership for Life. Here is your host, Gina Gardner.
Hi there. I wanted to spend the last few minutes of the show talking to you about ways in which you can support your own awakening. Now, Brenda talked about intentional journals, and I've realized over the last few years how powerful they are. That's where there's an introduction, and then for each day there is a quote or a series of questions to help you focus on that inner part of you, that inner wisdom. And I want to introduce 3 of them today because they do very different things. And it's quite useful to have a range of intentional journals and then just pick whichever one happens to be right for you. And some of the ones I've created have been 30 or 60-day workshops, if you like, so that they are designed to build on one another. But these are purely intentional journals. And the first one I want to introduce to you is called Taking the Bullshit Out of Leadership. Now, this is whether you're taking it out of your own, leading your own life, or whether you're talking about leading other people. We are so good at telling ourselves stories. And most of the time, we tell ourselves stories that are not at all empowering. They're not at all awakened or conscious because they're at a habitual level. And in the book, I share with you how I've worked with clients to help them become the leaders of their own life and then to lead their companies in a very different way by being aware of their own BS and developing a really accurate BS meter. And the important thing about BS is to recognize it and deal with it, but not to make it up stories, not to be judgmental about it. It is what it is. And as soon as you are aware, then you have a choice. You can continue to do it, or you can decide that you want to do things differently. And with the case studies that I have used, and they have been people who have recognized that they were sabotaging any chance of great success. And as a result, their companies have earned millions of pounds more. This stuff works. It really does work. So if you're in business and you want things to improve, you may be really successful. And some of the businesses I've worked with were actually very successful when I first started working with them, but have become even more successful and have sustained that success long after I have left them. So that's the first one. The second is about enlightened, authentic leadership, walking your talk. And it looks at how you turn up and how you can challenge limiting beliefs, how you can become the best leader. And it's part of a series, but I've chosen authentic leadership because I believe that awakening is about awakening to who you truly are, being prepared to be vulnerable. Vulnerable doesn't mean weak. But there's a difference between being vulnerable and being a victim. And there's nothing about the victim in enlightened, authentic leadership. Okay? Victims come because you've given somebody else the responsibility for your own emotional well-being, or because you are telling yourself such stories and believing them when the stories are just about as real as Cinderella. And the last one is called The True Essence of You. And that's a journal which is designed, it's a very, there is an introduction talking about the principles and how you can get started and giving you some real support and advice. But then it is about giving yourself that space, that gift of quiet each day, just for a few moments to journal and to recognize you can use it as a brain dump, and lots of people use it as a way of relieving stress, but it has so much more power. And the power is to enable you to start to have a relationship with your inner wisdom and with the greater universal consciousness, God, whatever you choose to call it. And so that's a book that's really designed to help you support yourself on your spiritual journey. Now, I have a huge stable of intentional journals and conventional books. Thriving Not Surviving, The 5 Secret Pathways of Happiness, Success and Fulfillment. That's a conventional book. That's a book which shares the principles and also some of my life story and how those have been incorporated into my own life very successfully and into the life of so many of my clients. And as a result, that they're doing really well. You know, I so often say you are the common denominator. You take you into every moment of every day. So doesn't it make sense to give yourself the very best opportunity to live a life that is successful, happy and fulfilling? Because when you look back at your life, and I hope it's a very long life, when you look back, what you want to be able to say is, I lived life fully. No regrets, that I was somebody who made a positive difference to the people I knew, and that I am proud of who I am and of what I've achieved. And I want that for everyone. So you take care. You are the leader of your own life if you choose to be. And I look forward to seeing you in the next show. Bye-bye now.
You have been listening to The Leadership for Life with your host, Gina Gardner. Make sure you tune in to W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV next Thursday and every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for more Leadership for Life. If you missed any part of this episode or just want to hear or see it again, you can find the archive of the TV show on Talk 4 TV's YouTube channel and the podcast of The Leadership for Life on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Music, and wherever you listen to your podcast.